Got a minute 45, Gary, minute 45.
Audrey.
Hello. How's everyone doing today? Good. Hopefully it's good. So, hello everyone. Welcome to REDi Chat. I am Larry Worth. I am not Nish Parikh. And I know you're maybe a little bit, this is like, that kind of looks like Nish, but maybe not, maybe a little less hair. And yes, Nish is actually out today. So I have had the opportunity to join us with my friend Gary. And we're going to do our best to fill in where Nish would is so good at these. So, but thank you all for joining, whether you're on LinkedIn Live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We want to thank you for attending today. And I'm pinching in, and again, Larry Worth. I'm Vice President over at Rangum, and we are here to not talk about me. We're here to talk about Gary and the work that Gary is doing with an incredible population. And so today's topic is the light within, a vision for success. And our guest is Gary Horton. So welcome, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Larry. I'm glad to be with you all. And hello, everyone. I feel like CNN, everyone from around the world. I understand this is an international company, so I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely, we are, and we're so happy to have you, Gary. And I've had the fortune to speak with you on a couple different occasions, and I'm just so excited to have you join us today. And so what I'd like to do is, if you wouldn't mind, if we could, I know you, but maybe this whole, those that are out there that are watching today may not. So if you could, tell us a little about yourself, what you do, what your organization does, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time just having a chat and talking about some different topics here.
All right. Again, my name is Gary Horton. Good thing about Gary, there's no nicknames. It's just Gary. Call me Gary. No problem. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I am president and CEO of Vanward Consulting Services, which is a staffing firm significantly smaller than Rangum. I lost my vision totally in 2017. Although when I was age 11, the doctors told me and my mom that I would be blind by my 50s. And that was a big deal for me as I moved forward in life. It was the impetus, I like to say, for success. I made a decision very early in my life that no matter what, I was going to attempt to experience and do everything I possibly could do before I lost my vision. What I've learned is even after you lose your vision, there's still a lot to be done and that you can do. So that's a little bit about me. Again, we run a program, Vanward Consulting Services runs a program here in Michigan for blind and low vision college students We do job readiness training for them on behalf of the Bureau of Services for Blind people here in Michigan. And we then place them in corporations like Rangam, like Pfizer, and others in traditional corporate internships. And that is my current passion. That's the thing that gets me up every day. That's the thing that makes me speak loudly. That's a little bit about me.
Oh, I love it, Gary. I love, hearing a story and how you have, taken the gifts that you were given and put them to great use, right?
Absolutely.
And so what an opportunity for you to be a steward of to others that maybe experiencing some of the some of the same challenges, and show them that, hey, there is light out there, as we say, the light within there. There is success in your future, and you are a living example of that. So I love that. I love it. And so you were sharing about some of the work that you do with the students and preparing them for the next steps of their careers,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
But you also, you work kind of both sides, right? You work with students, but then you also work with employers who,
Oh yeah.
We're all looking for diverse talent right now, and so, but not everybody knows, the best way to engage or to provide the support someone needs. But you provide some of that, right?
Yeah, Larry. I think of it as a bow tie, right? I think of my company as the knot in the bow tie. On one bow, you have students that are, let's say, visually impaired, but you can replace that with any impairment, any disability, right? And on the other side of that bow tie, in the other bow, are businesses, particularly corporate America. Because here's the thing, when corporate America gets behind it, things change, at least in the United States of America, and I dare say around the world. So what I do is provide these young people, and I deal with older people as well, in the skills for business in the private sector, because it's the private sector that allows one to be independent. On the public sector side is advocacy, it's education, it's awareness. That's the game on the corporate side. And use a language of corporations and not a language of what I would say are nonprofits. And that is, what is the value proposition for this employee or any employee? And we have to recognize that. And I like to feel that I bridge the gap in that knot. I tie the two together. I think in previous decades before COVID, they were miscommunicating. They were talking past one another. The public sector guys were talking and speaking in a language that corporations don't hear, and corporations didn't fully appreciate or recognize the real value that exists in lots of people, particularly the visually impaired, right? So again, a lot of what I do is making focusing on awareness for these corporations. And once they see me walk in a room, they see me walk with confidence, they see me navigate, then they understand what blindness really is. And a lot of people don't know what it really is. And I'm happy to tell you what blindness is. Blindness is me and every other blind person that's in the world. We're a spectrum of all different types of areas of vision. Yeah, I happen to be totally blind. Yeah, but I still look good.
Yeah, oh, you do, Gary. I like your style, man. Or like my teenage kids would say, I like your fit, which means you look good, man. Look at me speaking teenage. All right. So Gary, what you said about going and talking to those corporations and speaking that language is so critically important. When I first got into the world of disabilities, they're like, oh, you gotta go knock on 100 doors to get one person hired. I'm like, well, why don't you knock on one and get 100 hired? There's these companies out there, these big, huge companies that they're hiring thousands, tens of thousands a year. Why can't they hire our population? And like, oh no, they don't do that. They gotta go talk to corporate. I was like, cool, go talk to corporate. Like, oh no, can't do that. And the key is on that, and to be successful at that, is you have to understand those companies, those processes, and spend millions of dollars refining those processes. our job and your job, Gary, what you do so well is to take the process that a company has and to make it accessible and make it available for the population that you support. Now, we all support all disabilities, but you specifically support a population that when companies, they think about, yeah, I'll hire people with disabilities, and then they say, well, what about someone who's blind? And you reference it, like people don't really understand what that means, and they think it's just one thing, but there's so many different things. So if you could, maybe you could talk a little bit about, as you go and engage, like what are some of the key things that you talk to employers about when you're talking about, hiring people who are blind or have low vision or are on that spectrum that you talk about. What are some of those, key things that you focus on?
And that is the beginning of it, right? The first rule is that, well, let me just say it this way, Larry. When I was 11 years old and someone said you're going to be blind in about 40 years, all I could think about is all the lights going out and it to be total darkness. That's pretty scary for an 11-year-old. And you'd be surprised, and maybe you wouldn't be, but there's a lot that would be surprised that a lot of people think that. Not true. Blind people all have some level of vision. It's a spectrum. You have low vision people that just need a magnifier, all the way to people like myself that require technology to make myself accessible. If it is a brain job, there's not a lot of what I call a brain job. There's not a lot of that a corporation has to do. I developed my skill set over a 40-year career in automotive and energy. There's a lot that I have between my ears. Now all I need is the ability to use the tools in order to communicate, facilitate meetings, and do the work. And that is all trainable with technology. To your point about process is so important. When you're a staffing professional, your job is to match a human with a bag of skills with a job that exists within an organization. And the people that are good at this staffing business, they understand critically what those processes are and can define the person that most easily can meld into that job. And because of the digital revolution, the pandemic, remote work, technology, that becomes a much shorter jump to make. And those are the types of conversations that I get into. I always start from a business perspective. What do you need in this role perspective? Here's an example, a perfect analogy. I went to school with a guy. I went to a good school here in Detroit, and it was a magnet school. But if you're 7'2", you have to consider basketball, right? If you're 7'2" tall, you may not become a basketball player, but you have to consider it as an opportunity. It's the same conversation with these employers. Some of the opportunities they have within their organizations are tailor-made for individuals with visual impairment. Listening, communication, articulation, thinking around issues, creative thinkers, right? People that are visually impaired are social by nature. They communicate by voice by nature. So these are areas where I would argue people with visual impairment can exceed that of their able counterparts. Those are the types of conversations that employers need to hear, because then they can see how they can work these individuals into their job requirements. Does that make sense?
Man,
you gotta make it real for them from their perspective.
Absolutely. And this is something that we talk about all the time, and understanding that, gone are the days of, the charity hire, right? And it's like, hey, I just, Larry's a great guy or Gary's a great guy. Let's bring him in and figure out, what we can do. And we're doing it out of, again, we all want to feel good going to bed and sleep at night, but we're doing it out of like, oh, well, he's not really qualified, not really this, and so, but they still do it. Now, companies, especially the larger organizations that are out there, they're really looking for that talent, and they're looking for those transferable skills. And we understand that, folks in our community, whether they're neurodivergent, they're blind, autistic, or have disabilities, their path to where they are today is varied, but they have some of those transferable skills. You just got to know how to translate them to the job that is there, and you're going to have a very viable candidate and a very
Yeah, I
viable
think that's where the
employer.
firms come in.
Absolutely.
Candidly,
Absolutely.
I think there's a chasm. The way I look at it, I look at it this way, Larry. There's a chasm. You have state organizations across this entire country that have the responsibility of supplying vocational rehab for individuals that have impairment of any type, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are also committed to find employment or assist these individuals in finding employment. The voc rehab part they got right, but business moves at like 100 miles an hour. Government moves at 20, right? So I think there's companies that sit in the middle that can do that translation you're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
That's the key. I happen to have a staffing background. So for me doing this program, it makes it easier because I can talk to these individuals within the companies, the hiring managers, the process directors, the C-suite. I can talk to them about bottom line effectiveness, right? Not just compliance, right? Not accommodation is probably the last bullet I use in the chamber. The first bullet in the chamber is let me understand the role. And let's have it not be some role in a corner. Tell me what your needs are. In this environment, there's a surplus of jobs. Employers want committed, loyal, intelligent, learning talent. I can give them that. Let's understand what the roles are, and let's see how I can fit a person in that role. Once we understand what the role is, then we can start to focus on what an accommodation might be. Right? That's the conversation, I think, with the corporations. On the candidate side, it is see yourself as complete. You are a complete human. You have great skills and you have skills to learn, but it's about showing up with confidence, leaning into your so-called disability. I'm proud that I am blind. It is part of my success. Had that doctor not told me that at 11, maybe I would have gone a different path. Maybe I wouldn't have run as fast. Maybe I wouldn't have read as much. Maybe I wouldn't have been as strong. But when these same skills can be demonstrated to an employer.
Absolutely.
I will challenge anyone. I will sit for any job that I want. And to the extent that I can do it, the fact that I can articulate it will oftentimes get me that role. I'm sorry, I'm getting
Gary, I love it. So I'm smiling over here.
I'll put the soapbox down.
No, I'm smiling. This is why, man. Like, I love talking with you. You got the passion, you got the drive, like, but you also have the understanding, right? You're realistic as well, and you know what needs to be done to help move forward population that again that you so passionately support. And I love it. Like, usually I'm the guy that's like bringing the passion. So like I love that you're doing it. And so you said something that kind of triggered something in my thought, and we're talking about our job in this field is to identify that talent, regardless of what talent is. Like we understand intersectionality, right? The disability or blindness or neurodivergence or autistic is just one of the things that they are, and they may identify very closely with it and identify who they are, but they're more than just that. Right, they're an intersection of many different diverse categories that are there, and so you're talking about as you're looking at bringing in tremendous talent. You got all that going for you. You got all those learned life experiences. You got all that experience, and so we talk about that's the benefit of tapping into some of those resources because they have the talent. But then you also talked about some folks who a lot of what you do is working with college students who are now entering into that. They're developing those skills, right? They have the learned life, right? They have that, whether they acquired it or they're born with it. They have that piece of it. Now they gotta acquire those skills. So how do you help, really start shaping some of, that foundational skill work or hard skills or soft skills that someone needs to make that transition from college to the workforce?
That is such an excellent question. That is when I talked about bridging gaps, there also exists a gap, if I can go a little bit around the horn for this to answer your question.
Bring it
There's
on.
in universities, there's usually a disabled organization that deals with the disabled students on the campus, and there's usually the job organization on the campus that does the recruiting activity. And oftentimes those two groups do not talk to each other. So the students that have visual impairment don't usually get the option, or they are not aware of this whole job search activity and that exists at the university. Again, this is where the gap can be bridged. So with my students, we tell them we are not vocational rehab people. We're not educators. We're more like job coaches. So all of that work that needed to be done when they were a freshman in college or even a junior in high school, how to brand yourself, how to write an effective resume, how to write a cover letter, how to break down a requirement, how to assess your own skills, how to be able to articulate who and what you are and what you want, or even pick that career. That's our focus. And we do it by having individuals that engage with these young people that have the same quote unquote disability they have. All of my employment partners are visually impaired. All of the speakers that come to our workshop are professional people that are visually impaired. So we focus our lessons like a laser beam with the acknowledgement that we are dealing with trainers, facilitators, and students that are all visually impaired. And what I have seen has happened this last year is the students themselves build camaraderie, which is very, very important when you're doing a job search, building a network of professionals that you know your entire life. A lot of these young people may be a little more isolated. So we're giving them an opportunity to engage with other students. Oh, writing a resume. How do you write that resume? How do you develop the technical skills to do so in a professional manner? Well, you know what? Why don't you talk to professional people that do it? So we don't do a generic resume writing workshop. We do a resume writing workshop taking into account that a person writing that resume is a person that is visually impaired, writing it for somebody that may have sight. So by focusing these workshops in these areas, having those exemplars in place, this is what gives the young people the confidence to sit in that room and talk that talk. Because many of them can already walk the walk, but they have to learn how to talk that talk. And that's what my Lean In program is all about. And that, I think, is the answer for young people. The same activities exist for people in their middle age. If I'm 45 or I'm 62 and I lost my job, I'm not ready to stop working. I want to work and be independent. How do I do that? I think it's the same multi-step process that with anything else. Assess yourself, figure out what you want to do, figure out what the gap is, fill the gap, and then aggressively pursue employment. That's the answer. It doesn't matter your background. Did that answer?
Oh my goodness, man. I'm like,
Did I lay it out?
man. You're like dead on. I'm like, this is like, I'm taking notes. This is great. Like, this is outstanding, man. Like, this is wonderful, Gary. And
this is what is required. And again, young people of all ages, of all types, to your point, intersectionality, they need to hear this message. But really, those with visual impairment or other disabilities where they're kind of segregated from the world in a way, right? They need this message. They need to be inculcated with this information to prepare them to engage in the private sector. The answer is the private sector. It's the Pfizers, the GMs, the Fords. These are the companies that when they lean into it, we all lean into it. Absolutely. That will change. Gary Horton won't change society. Maybe Larry won't change society. But when the corporations get involved, things change. I've seen that my entire life.
Well, Gary, I love that you're doing your part too, man. Like, you're jumping right in there. And you're right. I think that, as private sector gets more engaged and starts seeing the value and understanding and having the systems of support and the pathways to attract talent with disabilities of all disabilities, we're going to see an explosion of talent.
Yeah.
We're going to see incredible innovation, because we know that's what's out there in our population. We just need to get them in the right spots, and the companies are starting to identify that. And the work that you're doing, preparing the students as they come through, but also having those conversations with the employers, with that private sector, that says, hey, you can do this, and here's how it's going to be done, and here's how you can do it within your situation, within your system. And I think all those things are starting to come together right now. And so, I see what a tremendous opportunity, and what timeliness of our conversation here, to have those who listen to this say, you know what, we can do this, and we can attract talent with all disabilities, particularly those who are blind or have low vision. And so, what a great opportunity it has been to have you, here and talking with us. And you and I, we could talk for hours, but apparently we're only confined to 30 minutes. And believe it or not, we're getting real close to that.
Oh, are you kidding me?
I'm not even joking. Like, we're at like 27. So like, right? And so
that went by like nothing. Nobody's
I know,
business.
like
Did
that.
I talk too much?
Again,
much?
We could talk about this all day. I love talking with you. And so I want to make sure that we leave the folks with you've already, if you're listening to this, you've already gathered so much information and such valuable insight. But if you could leave us with something, Gary,
Yes.
What is it? Is it a affirmation of something that you already said, or is it something new, or is it something that you've experienced through your lived experience? Like, what do you want folks who are watching this to take from it, or for listening to this to take from it?
Here's what I want everyone to take away. I said this to a group of students in Lansing, and I believe it to my core. Everyone has bias. I have bias. You have bias, Larry. Sometimes a person's bias in an employment context can work to your favor, while other times it can work against you. That being said, one thing is universally true. Excellence trumps bias. Excellence trumps bias. If you are excellent, you can trump bias. You can't change what another person necessarily thinks. And everybody tries to manage their bias. But you know what is unimpeachable? Excellence. So I leave everyone with this thought. Don't be mediocre. Don't be lazy. Be excellent. That would be what I would like to leave everybody with.
Oh man, Gary, like, there's no way anyone listening to this is hitting the 2:00 slump here on the East Coast. Like, they're all fired. I'm ready to go. Like, I got a bunch of work to do after this. I'm just ready to roll. I'm just so inspired, and it's motivated, right, as well. So I love it, and I love that. So Gary, thank you so much, and we I really enjoy our partnership together, and just think the work that you're doing is it's just the right thing, and you're doing it well, and you're doing it right. And any of those out there that want to seek to employ people with who are blind or have vision impairments.
That's right. If you want a good intern, don't forget about Vanward Consulting Services. I got great interns that will have the same passion that I'm displaying here on this meeting.
I love it. And of course, we're out here, we're Wrangham. We're always here for that. I know it's not a sales pitch, but together we're going to make great things happen. So thank you, Gary, so much for your time. Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you, everybody who's out there. Next week you'll get Nish back. It's okay, but thank you so much for all your time, Gary. Excellent job. Take care, everybody. On behalf of Wrangham and Nish Parikh, thanks for joining our REDi Chat. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks a lot.
Great. Wow, that was fun.